Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the Special Education Needs Authority Bill number 18 of 2018 be read a second time. This bill, Madam Speaker, is a landmark piece of legislation, one that is highly significant for learners with special education needs. It has, in fact, to be seen in the context of the overarching enunciations of the Government Programme 2015-2019 of achieving meaningful change. This is a bill that will act as a milestone since it concerns the setting up of an institutional body that will provide the relevant regulatory framework for learners with special education needs. Let me state in no uncertain terms that it has been imperative for my ministry to come forward with a well-defined policy for the fulfillment of special education needs. This policy, I must insist, is in alignment with, firstly, the ongoing educational reforms, secondly, the Sustainable Development Goal 4, and thirdly, the UN Conventions for the Right of the Child and of the rights of persons with disabilities. It will be recalled, Madam Speaker, that during the implementation of the educational reforms, many NGOs, stakeholders involved with the issue of special education needs showed deep concern. They were doubtful as to the consideration paid to the status of special education needs in the reforms underway. This is one thrust area that will definitely allay the apprehensions in this sector. Madam Speaker, the well-being of our learners with special education needs is a matter of concern for all of us here present. In fact, I know that it is a matter that strikes a chord in our hearts. Quite understandably, the setting up of the SEN authority is a positive response to a call from stakeholders in the field. This has been an unanimous call. The appeal has been to have a body that provides the architecture for policies and regulations that will ensure the effective running of SEN schools and the dispensing of a quality, fit-for-purpose and meaningful education for learners with special education needs. Madam Speaker, the introduction of this Special Education Needs Authority follows a number of measures, highly progressive and avant-gardist actions taken by my ministry. I will only summarily highlight and enumerate the major ones. As part of the inclusion process, access for learners with disabilities in mainstream and special education needs schools in Mauritius has been increasing over the last 4 years and stands today at 2,656. Part of the process has included the setting up of 12 integrated units in primary schools with a view to reaching out to students, children with special education needs. Further, primary schools are being made disabled-friendly and are being retrofitted with ramps, and this is being done in a phased manner. On the other hand, as from January 2017, students have been offered scholarships to pursue post-secondary tertiary courses. They're also benefiting from a monthly stipend. Madam Speaker, when we talk about students with special education needs, we have to consider how best we can help them to get access to education. As we know, through the Ministry of Social Security, the taxi fares are being refunded, are being provided for students from pre-primary to tertiary level. Madam Speaker, today we have 6 SEN resource centers, resource and development centers, that are fully equipped and operational as one-stop shops to provide specialized services to our students. These include occupational therapists, speech therapists, physiotherapists, psychologists, and parent mediators. A 7th center will be operational as from January 2019. Madam Speaker, also, a new curriculum framework has been elaborated based on the credo that education must serve both the physically, academically fit and those demonstrating a diverse range of learning patterns. Furthermore, as part of the professionalization of the SEN sector, the recognition of prior learning and prior experience of staff has been facilitated while staff capacity is being systematically built up. In this latter case, our bilateral ties with Réunion and France have been soundly tapped. Digitization has also found its way into the domain of SEN. Where budget is concerned, there has been a huge jump too. Thus, in 2013, the budgetary provision stood at a mere 52.7 million, while in budget 2018-2019, we must thank the Minister of Finance for that, the budget provision is of 203.5 million rupees. I must stress that capital investment is also being made for facilitating the creation of barrier-free schools. Madam Speaker, the grant in aid formula has been revised. The 41 NGOs running 53 SEN schools registered with my ministry are financially supported through the grant in aid to carry out their educational activities. Same is meant to contribute towards the salaries of staff, to cater for their basic per capita grant, and a supplementary feeding program, amongst others. Time and again, reference is made in several quarters to the concept of inclusion or mainstreaming. The terminology is interchangeably used and insists upon the necessity of including children with disabilities in the regular classroom, providing them with support through sustained comprehensive programming. I need hardly dwell extensively on the benefits that arise when real inclusion takes place at school. Among other things, it prepares all learners for living a future adult life in an inclusive society. Not only does it enhance the self-esteem of those with impairments or disabilities, but also encourages the growth of empathy for fellow beings. But, Madam Speaker, such a comprehensive form of inclusion cannot happen overnight. Teachers and support providers have to be prepared through intensive training, and above all, the learner's developmental readiness has to be gauged. So yes, we are working towards having a fully inclusive system, but it has to be phased in. This authority that is being set up will ensure that learners are provided with all relevant conditions for sound educational development. It will thus facilitate the transition of children who are ready to make the shift and join the mainstream classroom. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me now to introduce to the House the main provision of the SEN Authority Bill. The explanatory memorandum indicates the object of the bill, which is to provide for the establishment of the Special Education Needs Authority. This authority, it must be stressed, will act as a regulatory body that will be invested with a number of responsibilities and functions. To put it in broad terms, Madam Speaker, we're working from the premise that persons with special education needs have the same rights to education as people who do not have these needs. This is what we refer to as the rights approach. To that effect, the authority will be called upon to advise on the formulation of SEN policies and ascertain the facilitation of their implementation through proper monitoring. This will include the design and development of curriculum, as well as harmonization of programs and policies for the special education needs sector. Madam Speaker, we have taken a number of international commitments vis-à-vis the global community. Accordingly, we have to ensure that the diverse policies and programs for education and holistic development of special education need learners tally and are in line with these commitments. I'm here referring to the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. In this context, and as I stated earlier, government has taken several measures to ensure equity across the SEN sector. I mentioned earlier 6 SEN resource development centers and 12 integrated units set up on the premises of primary schools as a means of facilitating access and fighting against deterrent and restrictive factors. The additional caveat is that we must ensure quality standards in the SEN sector. And here the term quality takes on board meanings that go beyond the mere nature of educational provision. Rather, it encompasses the whole spectrum of services that have to be of high standard. For our learners with special education needs require specifically designed learning environments and facilities with specialized resource persons. We want institutions offering SEN facilities to be self-controlled and autonomous agencies in ensuring the quality of provision. But they also have to abide by prescribed norms and standards. Let me now take the House through the main provisions of the bill. Clause 5 makes provision for specific function of the authority to meet its object effectively. Madam Speaker, some of the functions of the authority relate to the registration issue. Clause 5b underscores the registration of special education needs institutions as well as their teaching and non-teaching staff. This is to guarantee that such SEN institutions are managed in accordance with relevant laws, rules, guidelines, directions and standards as provided for in Clause 5d. Other functions have been formulated for a better monitoring of the SEN sector. Among these, Clause 5c, which stresses the need for good governance and transparency, ensuring optimal, efficient, and effective use of grants. Clause 5e relates to the carrying out of inquiries into complaints and the administering of payment of any form of grant to the SEN institution. Clause 5k, for its part, has to be read very carefully. It is being asserted, Madam Speaker, that such grants are called upon to be used for purposes they are intended to serve. Madam Speaker, honourable members could have noted the close nexus between clauses 5c, e, and k. These have to be taken together as they are interlinked and mutually supportive. Clause 5L speaks of one fundamental function of the authority being to devise and implement plans to facilitate the early identification and assessment of persons with special education needs. This is further strengthened through Clause 5M, which provides for the facilitation of need assessment exercises and profiling of learners in SEN institutions. The purpose is obvious, Madam Speaker. Such an identification will help us provide customized learning opportunities and the right kind of therapeutic intervention and fit-for-purpose advocacy. I would also like to draw the attention of the August Assembly to the fact that the authority will enable the conduct of research in the field of special education needs. Clause 5R, on the other hand, one primary element that all experts in the field have been talking and writing about is a necessity for interministerial collaboration in this sector. The reason is obvious. The need for coherence and harmony in action is a sine qua non if our collective action is to attain the target set. In point of fact, this element also figures prominently in our strategy document. Clause 5S accordingly takes on board this cross-ministerial alliance. Again, I need to highlight that the diverse actors in the field have everything to gain if sound networking becomes the order of the day. The authority will accordingly have it as a crucial function to facilitate the development of a network with all relevant stakeholders, be it at local, regional, and international levels. This is contained in Clause 5O. Madam Speaker, it is now common knowledge that reforms are ongoing in the various subsectors of the education system. There is, however, one common denominator that is cross-cutting. That is the quality dimension. Quality is what determines learner engagement. This is all more true for our learners with special education needs. They require specifically designed learning environments along with the support of specialized resource persons. This new structure that is being set up will fulfill that need through the elaboration of a quality assurance framework and will prescribe the relevant norms and standards expected to permeate across the sector. This quality assurance framework in the SAN sector will be in line with international best practices and standards. Finally, and in a general sense, the bill will allow the SAN authority to ensure that good governance and ethical conduct prevail. It will also help establish and sustain strong home-school community linkages. Participation in education starts from the home. I need hardly labor the point that such linkages are essential if one of the cardinal goals of special education needs, equity, is to be met. No one will ever deny that where disability is concerned, the support and involvement of parents is primordial. Let me also seize the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to reassure parents about one thing. Many a time, parents find themselves in a difficult situation and are reluctant to report on something of an adverse nature that takes place in the institution that their child attends. There is a fear, sadly, that there might be, the children might bear the brunt. This is where the authority will have to step in and play its role to the hilt and take decisions and actions in the best interest of the child. The authority will have to take firm stand whenever required. Madam Speaker, let me now come to the composition of the board and its functioning. As per Clause 7 of the bill, the authority will be managed and administered by a board which will comprise 6 representatives of ministries directly or indirectly dealing with persons with disabilities, 4 NGOs involved in promoting education for persons with special education needs, and 2 persons with experience in the field. Madam Speaker, while the board will cater for high-level policy advice on special education needs and for directions and overall supervision of the authority, provisions have been made also in the bill at Clause 9(1)(a) for special committees to look into matters of technical nature. This will allow tapping of such expertise as health practitioners, psychologists, therapists, and other resource persons, parents, and stakeholders whenever the need is felt. Madam Speaker, as per Clause 10 of the bill, the board has the prerogative to appoint a director who will ensure the smooth running of the authority and for carrying out its day-to-day activities. Some NGOs, Madam Speaker, express their apprehensions as to their future and as to what is in store for them in the wake of this legislation. Let me stress, Madam Speaker, that it has always been our policy in education to systematically and consistently encourage active private and public partnership, and this irrespective of the area or the sector. In fact, we have been guided always by what we call the comparative advantage principle. What is this comparative advantage principle? It simply means that through such a partnership, the public and the private sectors can best concentrate on what each is good at. For example, government can deal with policy, quality assurance, curriculum development, while the private sector will perhaps be more apt for effective service delivery. This is obviously very much applicable for the SEN sector. In fact, I expect that our partnership will be further strengthened with this bill. Madam Speaker, let me now come to the matter of transitional provisions that are embedded in this bill. This bill indeed makes transitional provisions at Clause 25 for any special education needs school and for any special education needs resource development center already registered with the ministry. These will be deemed to be registered once the Act is proclaimed. This will equally apply for teaching and non-teaching staff as well as for resource persons already registered with the Ministry. Such registration will, however, be valid for a period of 1 year as from the date of proclamation. Madam Speaker, Clause 25(3) provides for the making of specific regulations for any of the transitions that may occur. Through such regulations, further moratoria may be granted if the need arises. Madam Speaker, the setting up of the authority is just a beginning. It is meant to be a major landmark on the education horizon, a major turning point in the evolution of the special education needs sector. In short, a game changer. It will provide a conducive learning environment, one imbued with good governance and accountability to all our special education need learners for their integral and holistic development. I hope that this bill will give rise to an edifying debate, and let this platform be one for advocacy for our learners with special education needs. For I believe, Madam Speaker, that we owe it to them. I now commend the bill to the House.